Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk about Maddie Clifton. She was an 8-year-old little girl who was killed by her 14-year-old neighbor and friend. I know it seems pretty cut and dry, like he murdered her, he's in jail, but there's a lot of backstory to it, and he's actually up for parole pretty soon. So of course I want to hear what you guys think, if he should get out, if he shouldn't. So if you guys haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe, like, and let's get to it. Joshua Phillips was born on March 17th, 1984 in Allentown, Pennsylvania, which isn't too far from me. His parents were Steve and Melissa Phillips, and his dad was a known drug addict and alcoholic. He was also extremely violent towards his wife, Melissa. Melissa and Joshua were extremely scared of the father, Steve. They lived in fear. It's said that he made extremely strict rules against his son. He would get extremely angry if his son brought friends over, and he absolutely hated young girls. Melissa, his wife, said she never understood why this was. Honestly, I'm pretty sure she was too scared to ask. Neighbors described Joshua as quiet and friendly, and Maddie, whose life he took, her mom described him as nice, friendly. Him and her daughter Maddie were friends, never saw them get in any arguments, any fights. And she never felt any reason to be afraid of him. The 14-year-old had no prior arrest or history of violence. And his school teachers even said he was a very popular student who had a lot of friends. And she even described him as young and funny and silly and energetic. According to Joshua Phillips, on the day of November 3rd, 1998, Maddie had walked from her house to his house, which was right across the street, knocked on his door because she wanted to see if he wanted to come outside and play basketball. Joshua's parents weren't home at the time, and he agreed to play basketball with her anyway, even though he wasn't allowed to have friends over when he was home alone. As the two were playing basketball, Joshua accidentally hit Maddie in the eye with the basketball. She started to bleed, and then as she was bleeding, she started screaming and crying. I'm sure as any 8-year-old would do. According to Joshua, he panicked. He knew his dad was going to be home soon, and the fact that he accidentally hit her with the ball and he had, her over his house playing basketball outside, he knew his dad would probably become enraged, and he just panicked and got scared. From here, Joshua claims that he drug Maddie inside, I guess, by her shirt, and he says that the lower part of her clothing articles ended up coming off as he was dragging her in the house. I don't know if I'm believing that, to be honest. I mean, little girls a lot of the time, because I raised 3 girls, wear like stretch pants, and they're usually kind of tight, and I can't imagine someone dragging her wearing stretch pants or jeans and them just like falling off. That just doesn't make sense to me. This is where Joshua says that he began to hit her with a baseball bat in the head to make her stop crying. Then right after, he ended up putting her body at underneath the base of his bed. Joshua's dad ended up returning home, and he spoke to him, very small talk, very briefly, and he returned to his room and shut the door. All right, I'm gonna give you guys a trigger warning because this is like really intense, and just reading it and then reading it out loud again, it hurts my heart. So I'm just gonna let you guys know that. Get it together. When he went back into his room to go make sure that Maddie was dead, she was still alive underneath the bed, and she was moaning and groaning. So he decided to remove his mattress, cut her throat, and then stab her in the chest 7 times with a knife from a Leatherman toolkit, which ultimately killed her. Around 5 o'clock that day, Maddie was reported missing. They searched for Maddie for 6 full days, and Joshua even participated in the search, which is very, very common. A lot of the times where people go missing, they'll put detectives undercover in crowds to kind of listen, hear, talk to people, see what they could find, because a lot of the time the killer is trying to help out. Joshua said for that week he was living in denial. He said, "I was putting myself in a fantasy world that nothing had happened. That was my defense mechanism for everything when I was a kid. I never made the decision to ignore it. I just did." I don't know why, but that kind of reminds me of Casey Anthony, because I feel like she did the exact same thing. She just figured if she ignored it, it would go away. It's like so weird. But I feel like I hear that a lot in these type of cases. On November 10th, Joshua's mother, Melissa, went into his bedroom and she noticed a wet spot on the floor. She searched his room and pretty quickly found Maddie's body. She immediately called the police and they arrested him that day. And I give her so much credit, because I'm sure as a mother, you just want to protect your kid knowing that they made a mistake. But I'm so proud of her for calling the police and not covering it up, because how many times do we see these mothers or fathers or whoever, parents, end up kind of covering up? The Gabby Petito case kind of comes to mind. That day at school that he was arrested, that same day he admitted to everything. The prosecutors, though, argued that there was no blood found where they were playing basketball, but I mean, a week later, did it rain within that time? If she got hit in the eye and was bleeding, I can't imagine there would be a ton of blood outside, so I kind of see why there wouldn't be traces of blood right away. Luckily, there was no trace of sexual assault, because they did all the DNA testings and nothing like that, but they still couldn't figure out how her clothes come off, because that didn't make any sense. The trial started and only lasted 2 days, and the jurors only took 2 hours to deliberate. And he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, but the death penalty was taken off the table because he was under 16. He was in prison. He ended up getting his GED and then later took college courses. He ended up working as a paralegal in prison and would also help assist other inmates with their appeals. Would also help tutor other inmates, and he also plays the guitar while he's in prison. He also participates in Christian religious services and yoga. During his appeal in 2017, the prosecution ended up saying that he was the model inmate. But as of 2008, he still has yet to write a letter to Maddie's family apologizing. And I find that like really just weird. That's not weird, but I find that really fucked up, honestly. Like, it's, how do you become a Christian and, you know, want to live this devout life and do better, but you can't do that if you haven't recognized what you've done. At 14 years old, you know right from wrong. So I don't know. I don't believe that you can really change yourself if you haven't written your wrongs yet. He is up for resentencing next year, so of course I want to hear what you guys think. Do you think he should get resentenced? Do you think they should lower his penalty? Do you think he should have what he has and nothing should change? I want to know what you guys think. This is really tough because there wasn't a whole lot of evidence. It's just unthinkable, and it's terrifying. But I hope you guys like this video. Let me know what else you guys want to see. I love you guys so much. Stay safe, and I'll see you soon.